Well, hello, Claire Obermarck here, and welcome to our series of stone and mountain stories. Today I'm going to tell a story from the northwest Highlands of Scotland, and it's in a wild, quite isolated area of Kintail. And there was a man there who lived on a farm, and he had 7 daughters. His wife had passed and he'd been left to bring up these 7 girls on his own. And every day he watched them grow, and he watched them grow more beautiful. And every day he became more and more concerned. Where was he going to find 7 good husbands for his daughters? It was very isolated there. It was a lonely glen on the shores of Loch Duick, and very few people passed by that way. It would be difficult enough to find one man, let alone 7. Well, one night there was a huge storm, and a ship came into the loch for shelter. And he could tell that once this had been a great ship. It was finely built. It would have been very expensive. But at the moment it was absolutely battered. It was in shreds. And it was owned by 2 young men, 2 young brothers, who had sailed over from Ireland. So the old farmer offered to help the boys and repair the ship. He had timber to refit her. And the boys were handsome. Their eyes shone like the sea, and they were tall, stronger and taller than generally the men that passed by the glen. So needless to say, the 7 sisters all fell in love with the 2 boys. And the brothers were also completely enchanted by their young hostesses. And let's just say the work on the ship continued for much longer than it really needed to. It was amazing how long it all took. But in the end, everything was done. She was all painted, fresh sails, and the sisters had even sewn the sails themselves. And when they could find no longer excuse to linger, the 2 brothers took their courage in their hands and went to the old farmer and asked for the 2 youngest daughters' hands in marriage. And the man went to consult the 7 girls. And of course the youngest 2 girls were delighted, but the older ones were not so happy. And they said, we're not thinking this is right, that the youngest should be married before us. Let the suitors choose according to age, and do it properly. So the farmer went back to the 2 young men, and they said, well, what your daughters say is right, and we don't deny that, but my brother and I, we're the 2 youngest. We've got 5 other brothers older than us, far handsomer and richer than ourselves. And so when we take the 2 youngest, they'll see them and they'll be absolutely entranced, and they'll come back over themselves. And so it was agreed. The 2 young men married the 2 youngest sisters, and they all sailed back to Ireland. And they made a solemn promise that the 5 brothers would come soon. But winter passed, and spring, and summer, and then autumn passed, and winter came again, but no ship sailed from Ireland, with 5 young, eager men on board. And meanwhile fame spread of the girl's beauty. And, plenty of passers-by came through, and more than one of them offered their hands to the remaining 5 daughters, but they'd have none of it. His hair is not spun gold, said one. I won't marry a man whose arm I can't walk under, said another. And so it went on that every single man that passed by the glen who offered marriage was shunned. And the girls grew older, and their father grew older, and they waited and they waited. Until one day he couldn't take it anymore, and he thought, right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get some advice from the Grey Magician. And the Grey Magician in those parts is famed for his wisdom. Now the Grey Wizard listened, and the magician sat and he promised to come and talk to the girls. He told them of how he had gazed into the black pool of the quarry and had learned that no such young men were coming. They were literally waiting for air. They were waiting for shadows. They did not exist. But we can't be farmers' wives while the sisters are in Ireland, said the eldest girl. So we're just to live and die here while our sisters are out sailing around the world having the whale of a time, said another. So we're to be poor and then rich. I've seen him in my dreams and I love him, said another. Well, the magician left and the years passed and the farmer grew older and older to the point where he was near to the end. And he sent again to the grey magician, who came, and they sat for a long time talking by the fire. And the very next day the old farmer died, passed away, and the 5 daughters were left alone. But the night of their father's death, the grey magician arrived at the door. And he said, "Yesterday I spoke with your father. I promised him to hold you in my protection. Now it's time, for your own safety, that you married." And the 5 daughters disagreed. "No," they said, "we are waiting for the 5 boys from Ireland to sail across the sea." "Do you want to wait forever for these dream bridegrooms?" asked the grey magician. "Think well before you answer." "We will wait. We will wait forever," said the girls. "In that case," he said, "I'll turn you into mountains and I'll place you at the head of Loch Duick, and there you can wait and watch forever. But you will at least be safe from the evils of the world, and I will have kept my promise to your father." And so the 5 sisters became the 5 hills, and to this day they're known as the 5 sisters of Kintail. And there they sit, waiting for that ship with its beautiful sails to sail up Loch Duick with the 5 boys on from Ireland to offer their hands in marriage. And they still believe, as the great mountains they now are, that their lovers are coming for them from Ireland. So if you're ever travelling over to Scotland and you're in that area, you must look out for those 5 sisters and ask them how they're doing. The last time I heard that story, it was by a wonderful storyteller and musician called Marion Kenny, and it's a lovely Scottish tale. Bye bye.